is my solemn vow.
This is my solemn vow.
Same-sex marriage is legal in the state of Indiana, an historic moment that so many in the LGBT community have been pushing for. Now, a legal fight could be on the horizon. Where this issue goes from here, the struggle to get every county clerk in Indiana on the same page, and a look at the cases at the center of this decision. It's all coming up on this edition of Indianapolis This Week.
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
A monumental ruling is dominating the headlines this week. Indiana is now allowing same-sex marriages after a federal judge ruled the state's law against it is unconstitutional. Welcome to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Todd Connor, filling in for Raphael. In the days after the ruling, we've seen couples lining up at county clerk's offices all across the state, especially in Marion County, where hours have been extended and hundreds have been married. Along with the crowds has come lots of legal confusion and resistance from some clerks to issue those licenses. One example of the confusion and continuing struggle for those licenses was in Bartholomew County on Thursday. Couples protested after the county clerk refused to issue them a license a day after the ruling came down until finally the county's judges intervened. Derek Thomas reports.
It was an impromptu protest because the clerk, Tammy Hines, would not issue marriage licenses for same-sex couples. It was noon when the sign-toting supporters showed up, but 27-year-old Cheyenne Maccabee, her partner, 32-year-old Christina Reeves, and their year-and-a-half-old son, Jagger, arrived early in the morning, only to be told no.
And I want to be the first one that they say, okay, we're going to do this.
How committed are you to this effort?
I'm very committed, and I told them I'll stand here all day. And if I don't get it today, I'll be back in the morning, and I'm going to stand here all day tomorrow. I'm going to stand here until either they strike it down or I get my marriage license.
Do you have the time, the energy to spend here?
Oh, absolutely. We will take all the time it needs to get this taken care of.
Reeves and Maccabee waited inside the office while protesters hung out outside. Then, judges armed with documents entered the offices and filed them with the clerk, apparently authorizing the clerk to issue licenses.
She's not a lawyer, and so she may not be able to understand all the nuances as well the judges could.
I'm following the law. I'm an elected official, and the law as it is that I understand it today to be that I am to issue same-sex license, and we are doing that.
Just like that, the couple was filling out the forms, and soon they would be married.
I'm surprised. I thought that this was going to take way longer than what it did, but it goes to show that if you take a stand for something that you love and something that you believe in, it's only a matter of time to where it's going to happen.
It did happen in a hallway just outside the office. It took a while, but love conquered all. Same-sex marriage is a fact in Bartholomew County. Derek Thomas, RTV6.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about that confusion for county clerks. RTV6 obtained an email that was sent to all 92 clerks Wednesday afternoon. It says the 5 clerks mentioned in the federal lawsuits in Hamilton, Boone, Allen, Lake, and Porter counties must issue same-sex marriage licenses. It goes on to say other county clerks are not under the direct jurisdiction of the court order, but as an officer of the court, we must encourage everyone to show respect for the judge and the orders that are issued. Our goal has been to avoid the chaos that has ensued in other states when rulings such as today's have been issued. We encourage respect for our legal system and the rule of the law. Well, Indiana Governor Mike Pence is weighing in on the historic ruling with much of the same sentiment to respect the law, but maintains his belief that marriage is between one man and one woman and supports the Attorney General's efforts to appeal the ruling.
We support the Attorney General's decision to appeal the case, but I believe in the rule of law. And we, as a state, as an administration, are making efforts today to comply with the court's decision, to make sure that the administration of state government reflects that decision, even while we support the appeal, and still hold out hope that the people of Indiana and the state of Indiana will be able to make this decision for the residents of our state in the future.
And joining us now is Megan Robertson, a leader of Freedom Indiana, the group that lobbied against the controversial marriage amendment bill known as HJR 3, and she was a recent Republican delegate to the state convention. Megan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so you're in a unique position, kind of, as a visible Republican and, as I said, a recent delegate, but yet you're leading this charge for same-sex marriage.
Well, I wouldn't quite say that. I was a leader of Freedom Indiana, and we were focused on stopping HJR 3 from going forward, a constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. And it was a really broad coalition, so not everybody in the coalition was in favor or working for same-sex marriage, but they certainly were against it being put into the Constitution, which I think is an important distinction because it was such a broad coalition. Not everybody was on board with gay marriage.
Well, so your feelings then on the judge's ruling?
I couldn't be happier for the people who have worked hard for this for dozens of years, trying to get this passed. And Indiana Equality and the folks associated with those groups, the ACLU, Lambda Legal, have all worked really hard for that. And I think it's their day to celebrate.
Is it the right thing for Indiana?
I mean, I think any observer can tell that where this is going, and the Supreme Court is going to make a ruling on this issue. I think they're going to say that same-sex marriage should be legal and should be the law of the land, and I'll be happy when that happens.
A couple of questions regarding that, though. First, when will the Supreme Court act on this, and what does Indiana do until then?
Well, I think it's a question for folks who are more familiar with the legal system than I am. Trying to guess what the Supreme Court's going to do can be difficult, but there are so many states that are dealing with this issue and trying to figure out the best way to handle it. I think they've got to step in soon, and I would think that they'll say in their next section that they're going to be dealing with it.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General and the Governor, they say they're going to appeal and fight this. Do you think they're feeling like they have a chance? Do they have a chance?
I don't know. I can't speak for what they think they have a chance at doing. I'm not involved in the efforts collecting petitions, but I've heard that there's some 12,000 people who've signed petitions asking the Attorney General to not try to appeal this decision. I think they probably will appeal it. I think they'll find ultimately it's not going to be successful, and the Supreme Court's going to end up saying that this is going to be the law of the land. I would commend them for sending out the message to the county clerks that they should be adhering to the rule of law. In Indiana right now, that means they need to be giving out the same-sex marriage license. And I hope that I think there's maybe 3 or 4 counties that aren't doing that still, and I would hope that they'll follow the governor and the Attorney General's lead on that.
What's this do for the Republican Party? Does this bring them closer together now that this issue has moved on more of a court challenge? Does it divide it further? Where do we go?
I think we're really where we were at the convention. I think it's unfortunate that this language was included in our convention platform, simply because it's going to be, going to the Supreme Court, and we have all this unrest. Every story this week has mentioned that the Republican Party put in our platform that we would be against this, and I think it's unnecessary, and I wish we hadn't done it, but that's the way it got handled. Yeah.
So until this maybe gets through the Supreme Court, do you see this still pitting two sides against each other?
I think it'll probably still be a divisive issue. Hopefully people can move on from it at some point, but at the same time, you see, the issue with Roe v. Wade, how that's something that has continued to divide Americans. And I think the Supreme Court has dealt with this in a different way in trying to give people time to catch up and not quite have the whiplash that you got on some of these other issues. I think the Republican Party could learn from that and see this as an opportunity to, we don't have to abandon our principles or tell anybody what to believe on it, but not necessarily tell people why they shouldn't be Republicans, be a welcoming party.
Right. Megan Robertson, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, after the break, we are jumping into a lot of the legal aspects surrounding this historic ruling as we sit down with law professor when Indianapolis This Week continues. Some of the couples at the center of one of the lawsuits gathered to give their reaction to the historic ruling on Wednesday, just hours after it came down. The couples who sued through the ACLU say they are ecstatic over the federal judge's decision. Most of the couples got married in other states and are now thrilled to have their marriages recognized in their home state. C.J. Valero and Greg Hasty have been together 8 years and engaged for 2, but they've been waiting to get married in Indiana.
It feels amazing. I was overwhelmed with emotions at work and told my boss, I'm out of here. Got to get downtown.
Me too.
Hasty and Valero went straight from the news conference to the Hamilton County Clerk's office to get their marriage license and got married right outside the courthouse. All right, joining us now is Indiana University Professor of Law, David Orentlicker, who is an expert in constitutional law. David, thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Sorry I butchered your name, but
no problem.
We want to get it right. All right, first of all, I guess, how long do we have before we know whether a stay is going to be issued, if at all?
It could come any day now. It could take a week or two. What we've seen in other states like Utah and Wisconsin is that a federal district court like Judge Young, a judge in those states, has rejected the same-sex marriage ban. People have gotten married, I think about 1,000 in Utah. And then the Court of Appeals issued a stay. And so after a week or two of marriages, that they've stopped marrying.
Then everybody's in limbo. I mean, what happens to those folks who lined up as soon as this first ruling came down? I mean, what's been the case, and what do you expect would be the case here?
We don't know for sure. We do know that the federal government has said that they will recognize those marriages as valid, even though the order has been suspended. So for purposes of your federal tax returns, you'll be treated as married. But the state, if the governor and the attorney general in some of those states will say, we will treat you as married, then you're home free. But if the governor and the attorney general say, no, we're not going to treat you as married, there's a stay now, then we don't know, and until it's litigated, there will be uncertainty. The good news is this uncertainty probably won't last too much longer, probably not more than a year.
That seems like a long time, though. If you just got married, you're, not sure about things, but it could go on for some time.
Yeah, well, the Supreme Court is has wrapped up its term, and so it wouldn't be able to hear oral arguments till the fall, and then
rule again this time next year.
Yeah, usually with major decisions like this, they all come the last week of the term.
So, what is your opinion? Do you think the court will, once and for all, rule on this and get it out of the way a year from now? I mean, is that a good guess?
I think odds are that within a year we'll have the Supreme Court say that there's a constitutional right. Things have moved very quickly.
It's been like dominoes falling almost from each state, but there are a lot of dominoes left to fall.
Exactly, but what's been surprising is how consistent it's been. We've seen red states, blue states, federal judge one after another, and it's been very quick. It's a little more than 2 years since President Obama finally came out and in favor of same-sex marriage, and so lots happened very quickly, but the Supreme Court justices are very sensitive to public opinion, and public opinion is overwhelmingly in favor of same-sex marriage.
Now, what could change this for the Supreme Court taking it up next year? I mean, are there a lot of variables that, could throw things out of whack, and they wouldn't take it up next year? Or?
Well, with some issues, you do like to let things percolate through the states, and they did that with end-of-life decisions. It took 15 years before the Supreme Court weighed in on the right to refuse life-sustaining treatment. But there you could imagine wanting to see, does it work well? Is it abused or not? It's hard to see how empirical data will matter for this. And the other thing is, because public support is overwhelming, this is not like abortion where people are evenly divided and are going to be divided for a long time. This is an issue that people are going to look back in a few years and wonder, why did we ever fight over this?
And last, we have about 20 seconds left, but what are the risks, or the biggest risks, for those who decide to get married right now?
The only risks are that there will be this uncertainty. I got married, and there might be a state agency that doesn't treat me as married, and so I'm not going to be, there may be a period where they're not have the full status of a marriage. But otherwise, there's no downside. They'll get at least they'll be treated by the federal government as married.
Right. All right. David Ortlicker, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. After the break, it's going to be time to put the gloves on. Kip and Abdul are about to jump in on the same-sex marriage ruling, and believe me, you won't want to miss this. All right, welcome back. And joining us now are two of our political insiders, Democrat Kip Tu and editor of IndyPolitics.org, Abdul Hakim Shabazz. All right, do you guys agree with the judge's ruling? I do, or I don't?
Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Exactly.
I think we both agree with the judge's ruling. I think that it's a historic day. Obviously, in the state of Indiana, it was wonderful to see a whole bunch of my friends get married on Thursday and Friday. I think it does show, though, that the Republicans in the legislature wasted an enormous amount of time over the last decade. Democrats have consistently opposed the efforts to ban this stuff. So I think that hopefully now the Indiana Republican Party will come into the 21st century and join the Democrats.
I have told my Republican friends over and over and over again that this is a losing issue. Time and trends are working against you. The law is working against you. And not one jurisdiction has a federal judge, to the best of my knowledge, ever upheld a state's ban, on same-sex marriage. You had the 10th Circuit, very conservative, out of Colorado, Utah, basically throw out Utah's ban on same-sex marriage. Now they issued a stay until it's appealed to the Supreme Court, but the tide and trends are moving away. And my friends who fight this issue, you're fighting a losing battle.
But as a party, you just can't throw your hands up and say we give up and you win. I mean, you got to keep fighting, and every indication is Governor Pence and Attorney General are going to fight this thing till the end.
Well, I wish they would be focusing on jobs. I mean, that's what the problem with our country is. The problem in the state of Indiana is creating jobs, creating wealth, getting people moving into the middle class. That's what Democrats are talking about. These guys continue to want to talk about divisive marriage issues, and now the federal judge has come in and said no more. I hope they wake up.
I cannot fault the Attorney General for doing due diligence and filing an appeal when a state statute, regardless of what we think about the statute, has been found to be unconstitutional.
He's doing his legal job.
He's doing his legal job.
He's wasting taxpayers' money.
He's doing his legal job.
He's absolutely wasting taxpayers' money.
Because if there was any other statute that was thrown as unconstitutional, would you just say, okay, just forget about it and just let it stand?
That's what you tell him to do if it was a Democratic AG, I guarantee.
No, I tell him, hey, at the very least, take one shot at the apple.
Why waste taxpayers' money on something you just said? You just said the tide's going away. You know what the Supreme Court's going to do. He's wasting money.
No, but
there's other things he ought to be doing.
As an attorney, he has an obligation to at least take one bite at the apple and file an appeal.
He has the ability. We can figure out
for a couple days. We're having our first fight.
You guys are married. It seems like
he's not my type.
Concurrence.
We'll save that for off camera, I think. The governor, though, he has said again that he believes a traditional marriage is one man, one woman. Everybody's allowed to evolve on a lot of different issues.
Sure.
Should he embrace this now and take this time to evolve or move to the next step that many say he should, or this is the way he feels and he's going to stick with his guns?
Well, Todd, I think it's a fair point to say folks evolve, Democrats evolve, but they just did it a decade ago, and I hope the Republican Party does evolve, and I hope that they realize that they've been wrong. Democrats did, and I hope they do. But this governor wants to run for president, and in a Republican primary, I'm not sure Republican base has evolved yet, and so I don't know whether he's going to follow the lead of his conscience, follow the lead of what he's trying to run for.
Well, I'll jokingly say you always have a hard time trying to convince my Republican friends about evolution. So I'll just
I knew when I said that word I was getting into another area.
You get that out of the way. No, I mean, Mike Pence is like a lot of people. He's a person of faith. He has deep religious convictions, believe that marriage has traditionally been between one man and one woman. But notice, in the clip we played earlier, he also made it perfectly clear to state government, hey, the judges ruled, this is the law, the state of Indiana will follow the law. He's not like Bull Connor at the schoolhouse steps with the bullhorn, saying we'll never obey that evil federal government. He is going to comply with the law. And that, to me, says, hey, I have my personal beliefs, I have my conscience, but the law is what it is for right now until something happens, so the state of Indiana will follow the law.
What's this do to the Republican Party? I mean, this has been a divisive issue up until now. I mean, is this split it further? Does it start to bring it together? Where do we
Actually, I think, in a weird way, this may actually start to bring the Republican Party together, because now Republicans who were never crazy about this in the first place but didn't quite have the political cover to go out on a limb can say, hey, the courts have ruled, the judges made a decision, we can all say what we want, but this is all the land. It's time to move on.
I still think it's a while before they figure it out. I mean, just several weeks ago, we had 2 Republican members lose their election because they voted with Democrats on this issue. So I think it's going to be a while. Their platform still has the divisive language in it, so I think it's going to be a while.
It does. You bring up a good point, political cover. I mean, there are a lot of people who in the legislature don't really want to be handling this, but they are, and might be happy to see it move on.
And this is why I don't think the marriage amendment is ever going to come up, ever.
Again, it's gone.
This is done. And if this was not the last nail in the coffin of that nonsense, I mean, I don't know what is. There's no point to ever bring the subject back up, and it's disingenuous for the Eric Millers and Micah Clarks and the quote-unquote family activists of this world to say this is why we need a marriage amendment. Because
the last 15 seconds.
I disagree with them. I think that they got two members this session, and they're going to be asking and pushing, and it's going to be hard for the Republicans to stop them.
All right. Kip, Abdul, great hearing from you guys as always. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great rest of your weekend. The conversation between our insiders continues on Twitter, as always, too. Check out their Twitter handles and give us your opinion. And stay up with Kip, Abdul, Laura, and Jennifer throughout the week. And Indianapolis This Week continues after the break. That's it for this edition of Indianapolis This Week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Todd Connor. I hope you have a great Sunday.